The first loop is the oldest one. Sin, fear. Not fear of danger, fear of rejection. Picture this. You walk into a room where everyone is already talking. For 1 second, your brain asks a question you never hear out loud. Do I belong here? Sin. That single question changes everything. You stand differently. You laugh a little harder. You become quieter than usual. You replay every sentence before saying it. What's fascinating is, most people in that room are asking themselves the exact same question. Everyone is trying to belong, which means almost nobody is judging you as much as you imagine. They're too busy judging themselves, but your brain can't see inside their minds, so it assumes the worst. Now the second loop, comparison. Imagine opening Instagram for just 2 minutes. Someone bought a house. Someone got engaged. Someone launched a business. Someone is traveling the world. Within seconds, your ordinary Tuesday feels like a failure. But here's what your brain forgets. You're comparing. You're behind the scenes to everyone else's highlight reel. Humans have always compared themselves to others, but never before could we compare ourselves to hundreds of lives before breakfast. The problem isn't comparison. The problem is the impossible number of comparisons. Here's the twist. Your brain believes one dangerous lie. Once I succeed, I'll finally stop overthinking. But that's rarely what happens. Get promoted, and you worry about losing your position. Find the perfect relationship, and you worry about ruining it. Become successful, and you worry about staying successful. The finish line keeps moving, because overthinking doesn't feed on failure. It feeds on uncertainty, and uncertainty never completely disappears. The third loop is the most deceptive. Control. Your brain believes if it thinks long enough, it can prevent bad things from happening. So it rehearses tomorrow's conversation, 10 different versions, 20 possible outcomes, 100 imaginary disasters. It feels productive, but thinking isn't the same as preparing. One creates clarity, the other creates exhaustion. Real preparation ends. Overthinking never does. Here's the answer we've been chasing. Overthinking isn't trying to destroy your peace. It's trying to protect your identity. Every what if, every replayed conversation, every imaginary disaster is your brain asking one hidden question. Will I still be accepted if this goes wrong? Think about it. When you overthink a job interview, it's rarely about the interview. It's about what failure might say about you when you overthink a relationship. It's rarely about one message. It's about the fear of losing someone who makes you feel valued. Strip away every anxious thought, and underneath it, you'll usually find the same desire: to belong, to matter, to be enough. So, how do you interrupt overthinking? Not by fighting your thoughts. That usually makes them louder. Instead, change the question. When your mind says, "What if they judge me?" ask, "What evidence do I actually have?" When your mind says, "I need certainty before I act," ask, "So, how do you interrupt overthinking?" Not by fighting your thoughts. That usually makes them louder. Instead, change the question. When your mind says, "What if they judge me?" ask, "What evidence do I actually have?" When your mind says, "I need certainty before I act," Ask, how much certainty has life ever promised me? And when your mind starts replaying yesterday, bring it back to something your thoughts can't fake. Your breathing, the feeling of your feet on the ground, the sounds around you. Reality is happening now. Overthinking only exists somewhere else. Look, you know you'll overthink again. Tomorrow, next week, maybe even tonight. So will I. So will everyone you know. Because overthinking isn't a bug in the human brain. It's part of being human. The goal isn't perfection. The goal is noticing when your imagination quietly replaces reality. Every time you catch yourself, the cycle loses a little more power. Progress isn't measured by having fewer thoughts. It's measured by believing fewer of them. Maybe that's the biggest misunderstanding of all. We spend our lives trying to silence the voice inside our heads. But that voice was never the enemy. It was an ancient guardian, trying to protect a version of you that no longer exists. The world changed. Society changed. But your survival system never got the memo. And perhaps real freedom isn't finally thinking less. Perhaps it's realizing that not every thought deserves a vote, because the loudest voice in your mind isn't always the wisest one. And the moment you stop treating every thought as the truth, your mind stops being a prison and starts becoming a place you can finally call home. Now everything starts to make sense. Fear, comparison, control. 3 invisible loops. 1 exhausted mind. But here's the real mystery. If overthinking isn't your enemy, then what is it trying to protect? The answer changes everything.